I started this journey many years ago in a household with 12 to 14 people. I didn't think of us as being poor or disadvantaged. I'm told by others that we were a proud and talented working family who just happened to reside in a railroad boxcar. My grandmother, Lois White, would say, don't pay attention to what anybody says about where you live. Every home you see is a step up for somebody. Be grateful and have the gratitude to appreciate what you have today. I intend to use my time, the few minutes I have on this podium, to express my gratitude to a few members of the team that carried me for 7 decades on their shoulders so that I could be here tonight. First and most memorable was a friend whose name you'll recognize. That's Nelson Mandela. We met when other black corporate executives my age thought themselves powerless and turned their backs on this great man out of fear of retribution from their corporate leaders. When I started work with General Motors, there was a guy named Dr. Jim Oliver, who was a brilliant social scientist. He was my first corporate boss at General Motors. In fact, I ended up being the general manager of the Institute at General Motors, GMI. After looking at my test scores, he rhetorically asked, do you think there could be others out there like you? Even as a politically wrong question to ask, my thought was, most of the racial insecurities that I had at that point about my intelligence, because I'd been told my whole life that we weren't smart enough to lead and do certain things, went away. And I appreciate Jim Oliver for doing that. Another special individual in my life was a gentleman named Bill Ray, who was president of one of Honeywell's business units, who taught me most of what I know about running and operating a business. But I should tell you the most aspirational leader I had was Ed Spencer. He was the former chairman of Honeywell. Early in my meeting of him, he sent me off to Wharton University. He said, I want you to be a scholar in finance, economics, and marketing. In the early 70s, everybody took odds against this young black man wearing a large afro. And he would say, I still have confidence in you. I think the afro will go away in time. And he was right. He would tell me of his dream, though, of me being the captain of a multi-billion-dollar Fortune 100 company and giving back to the less fortunate. One of my closest friends who helped me achieve the goals of venture executives, we acquired 12 or 14 companies instead of a partnership with the L.M. Ericsson company in Stockholm, Sweden, is here tonight, and that's Kyle Carpenter. And Kyle, I appreciate you being here for all these years. We've been the best of friends. We fought a good war at Honeywell at that time. Thank you. Later, I was introduced to a business partner named Dennis Matheson. Whenever I came to him for advice or financial backing, he never wavered. And the lesson learned here, one day we were on the golf course, I said, Denny, why did you do this to me? Why would you help me? And he said, hold on a second. I'm not a social scientist. I'm a business person. I'm a banker. Every day of my life, I bet on people. And I think I can trust you, and I think you'll work hard. And I said, what about the color thing? He said, I don't know anything about that. I can trust you, and you'll work hard, and you'll get my money back to me. I've never forgotten that, and Dennis and I are still best of friends today, almost 40 years later. I'm grateful to a gentleman named Chris Klauser. For 12 years, Chris and I cultivated relationships and accomplished what many thought was impossible with a bankrupt organization like the Harlem Globetrotters. No one has ever done it better than Chris as we traveled around the country and told the possible story of the Harlem Globetrotters. I used to think we'd look like something out of a movie, this black guy and a white guy telling the Globetrotter story. But we told it and we kept all of our promises. The next individual I met, thank you, Chris, by the way. The next individual I met was Abe Saperstein, the founder of the Harlem Globetrotters. He took me under his wings and taught me the business. I had no idea what I was looking at. But he always says, you're going someplace. You gotta go someplace. He used the name Oscar to describe his players. He said, you'll be the best Oscar of all of them. In those days, I never thought about an Oscar. I just knew if Abe said I could do it, I'm gonna try to do it. And tonight, I'm remembering a Hall of Fame friend and an NBA pioneer. His name was Earl Lloyd. He had this undeniable leadership style. I used to watch him walk through the hallways of the Chrysler corporate office. And I noticed it was no different than when he walked through the hallways, the locker rooms of the Detroit Pistons. I asked him one day, I said, Earl, what's up with this? He said, Mannie, I'm gonna tell you something. That's the way he talked to me. Mannie, I'll tell you something, buddy. He said, I only know one way, because there's nobody that's gonna do what I'm gonna do that looks like me. I've got to be myself. It was a great lesson I learned from him. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, no one I ever met was greater in terms of integrity than Dave Gavitt, who introduced me to the Hall of Fame. A little known story, I don't think the people here tonight from the Hall of Fame know this. The 2002 enshrinement, he pulled me aside and he said, Mannie, I'm doing my best effort to make sure that the Hall of Fame becomes completely desegregated, that we recognize the contributions made by African Americans going back 2 or 3 decades, prior to 1950 and prior to 1940. And he kept that promise. I'm proud to introduce now and tell you here that current president is carrying out that legacy, John DeLeva. His vice president, Scott Zeffalato, is here. And one of the board members and trustees, my good friend Sherman Brown, is here. This Hall of Fame, that Hall of Fame, means business. And I think it's going to change the way athletes behave over the next 10 to 15 years. At the end of the day, I feel really strongly about the University of Illinois, however. Probably the best executive that ever ran the University of Illinois is here tonight, Joe White. If you ever want to read a book on leadership, it's one of the best books you'll ever read. I want to thank Joe for what you've meant to my family. I've had frequent contact and support from teammates from those years back when. Denny Swanson, namely, who likes to say he was a manager of the team. He was a teammate. Number 54, Dave Downing, and a former teammate named Jerry Colangelo, who may be the most powerful man in sports. He's been incredibly loyal and supportive. And I thank Phyllis Wise, a genius with a big heart, and Bill Sturtevant and his wife, Terry. They helped my family figure out how to give this money away that we've accumulated over the years, and they do a pretty good job at it, I should tell you, Bill. I went to the University of Illinois one year in 1993, I think it was, and a little pre-med student walked up to me and said, I like the way you've told your story about the Harlem Globetrotters. Is it possible that I could do an internship with the Globetrotters? I said, you're in med school. You don't need to be leaving med school to come work for the Globetrotters. Well, ladies and gentlemen, just about 12 years later, she started out being a nanny for my family. She ended up being a marketing assistant. And when she left and decided to have a family with her husband, Jeff, she was president of one of our business units and was a powerful president from the University of Illinois. It's amazing where you find talent. I would say that the best thing I've done in my career has been done with the University of Illinois I-Leap program. If you don't know the details of that program, go online. These are students who are first generation. Many wouldn't be at the University of Illinois without a program like this. The graduation rate is running over 94%, which is incredible. And I should also tell you that the grade point averages has been 3.2, 3.4 consistently. These students are forming an army, not only to be academically strong, but to change the world. And 2 of the young students are here tonight. I'd like Nick and LaQuandis, just stand up. They can see what your brothers look like. Stand up, please. Thank you. They mean business. They mean business, I tell you. They're going to help change the world. My high school coach was also my surrogate parent, Joe Luco. He saw potential in a 13-year-old, 135-pound basketball player, and he used to tell me, you can take over basketball. And I believed him. I wanted to do it. My good friend Rick Hill is here. Eve Miner's here. Mike Syracuse is here. Dr. Del Chapman of Lewis and Clark College is here. And also the nation's #1 school system executive, the #1 school system executive, Dr. Ed Hightower is here. These people, and by the way, Dr. Ed Hightower, many of you know, he was also one of the top officials ever. I think he told me he was at 12 Final Fours. He's a partner of mine now. and one of the best people I ever know. These people keep me alive in an environment about doing new things for my community. And I'm very grateful for that. As a teenager, my friend Governor Vaughn and I went to the University of Illinois. We were the first African Americans to play at the University of Illinois. And I should tell you, I really appreciate having him around because we heard virtually every derogatory racial term imaginable as we traveled around the country. And it only inspired us to be better. Our coach would tell us, when the game is over and you've won by 20 or 30 points, and you walk out of this gym, hold your chin up, and you'll probably never hear those terms again. And we were motivated every night to beat the crap out of the team we were playing against and to score 20 and 30 points and let them know we were proud of what we were representing our high school. My mother, Margaret, my dad, Emmett, were good people and cool people. And they meant a lot to me. They were very smart. My good sister, Marjorie, never missed an event that I had around the world, practically, certainly around this country. And she's here tonight. I love her dearly. My brother, Steve, and I got 3 special children, and Cassandra, Candace, and Randall. And their spouses are here, along with my granddaughter, Asia. And finally, my wife, Kathy. She's been my partner for nearly 40 years. And like no other, the best choice I could have ever made. She continues to be my MVP, my all-star, as a stage 4 cancer survivor. When she decides to write her life story, believe me, it'll no doubt be a must-read and a bestseller. I want to tell you one story before I close this tonight, though. In the early 60s, when I traveled with the Globetrotters to foreign countries, I wanted to visit all the students I could visit, whether it was in Poland or Beirut, Lebanon, or in Czechoslovakia or Turkey. And they'd always ask the same question when we got through talking or visiting with each other. They'd ask the question, well, why aren't more blacks playing in the NBA? Why is there a quota system? And how do you cope with America's racial conditions and the constitutional hypocrisy that we see from where we're looking at it? And I want to tell you, after hours of talking, the one trump card I had in my pocket, in my hand, was simply to say, America is not without its flaws. And to this day, I sincerely believe that anything in my country is possible and attainable. And you know, when I'd say that, the conversation would stop. And to this day, I still believe this. I only wish that those students could be here tonight, because I suppose my being here tonight is evidence from that boxcar to standing here with you tonight. Anything is possible. In those moments where I was in Turkey or Poland or wherever I was, I would also remember how fortunate I was that in my generation, African Americans were given an opportunity to get a scholarship at universities like Illinois. I guess I could say I'm where I am today because of the NCAA. My life has been deeply enriched by relationships. I've traveled to over 100 countries. I've met and talked to great leaders like Pope John Paul, Prince Charles, Fidel Castro. I spent 20+ years in the corporate world, 20+ years as a basketball player and owner, and the last several years working on what I call socially relevant documentaries and writing my life story. This week, I've traveled to 2 cities to raise money for the Humanities Center that was talked about in the video you just saw. That complex will be in Edwardsville. We want to teach young people and older people about multicultural relationships and tolerance. We want to help solve the problem and the hurdles created by the lack of knowledge and interest in mathematics and science. I became a National Science Fellow after I left the University of Illinois. That center, we think, will change the complexion of our society that's becoming more complex every day. Brett Meister, who was to be here tonight, is one of the industry's best team publicists and will no doubt recall this story. In 1998, Roger Thoreau did a front-page article on the Harlem Globetrotters about the economic and social resurgence of the team. He wrote under the paragraph, under the picture, he stated, in a growing era of surly and troubled athletes, the Globetrotters find gold by simply being nice. Today, after nearly 90 years, I want you to remember this. The Globetrotters remain iconic role models for the concept of people of all backgrounds being happy together. And you know what's funny about that? I often think, why can't our nation do this? We did it in that boxcar in 1940. And I thought about something else. Life is about promises made and promises kept. And Mike, I want you to hear this, because I'm closing this with a statement of gratitude. The University of Illinois promised me I'd get a respected four-year education, and I did. You promised I'd meet interesting people from all over the world, and I have. You promised I'd have a job that me and my family could be proud of, and that certainly has happened. And you promised me that I would spend my life trying to make others better after that Butler University game, and I hope that I've done that. I'd ask you to do me a favor. Could you give the University of Illinois its props, a hand for making a promise and keeping it? I'm evidence of what the University of Illinois can do for a student. Thank you. But you know what? The University of Illinois never told me I'd be here. This is pretty damn cool. I ain't gonna lie to you, this is pretty cool. Thanks for Teddy Roosevelt, his memory. Thanks to the NCAA. And Mike Thomas, I love you, brother. And Mark, the good work you're doing, you got a job in your hand. Thanks so much. You're important to me, you're important to my people, and you're important to the legacy of the NC2A. I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you very much.